Hello, hello, and welcome back to Retrieving Sanity with your podcast host Keegan. And this is your podcast for all mental health, addiction, recovery issues, and topics. And today we have a very special guest, Tenya Eickenberg. I said that right, correct?
Yep. Tenya Eickenberg.
Eickenberg. So close. Sorry about that.
It's all right. It's, if I'm lucky if people get one of my names pronounced correctly. So it's all good. I'm used to it.
Fair enough. So tell us about yourself, if you would. I understand you're an energy healer and anxiety coach.
Yes. So I love energy. I love the fact that I don't have to continually look on the outside and take things, ingest pills or liquids or whatever to help me feel better. Everything is energy, and so with our thoughts, we can really shift everything around us, including our physical pain and our mental pain. And I came into it when I was at my probably my deepest depression for me, and my anxiety was considerably getting higher and higher. And you can have both at the same time. A lot of people think that typically you have one or the other, but a lot of times anxiety will cause depression, or depression will lead into anxiety. And this was at the start of COVID as well. Now, I was lucky enough that I was able to continue to keep working, so I didn't have the anxiety of like not having a job or anything like that. It was just, it also kind of came together in the fact that my twins were 18 and they were leaving the home. My oldest was graduating college. My husband was graduating college. We were buying a new home. It was just, there was a whole lot of stuff going on all at the same time. And then when all of that kind of simmered down, and I had nothing to keep me busy, I had nothing to distract my feelings and stuff that were going on that I was ignoring. They were like, "Oh, hey, hi, remember us? Yeah, we're still here. Yeah, can you work with us now? Can we talk?" And I was just like, "Okay, what am I gonna do?" And I took the traditional routes of therapy and medication because at that time, that's all I knew. I had gone through probably 3 or 4 cycles of getting on medication, seeing a talk therapist, feeling like I wasn't getting what I wanted. And so I'd stop and I'd look for something else to self-medicate. And it finally, I think my diagnosis of an autoimmune disease kind of started me on that track of trying to do things a little more natural. But in the process, I went on medication. I went to go and see a therapist. And after about 6 to 8 weeks, I was just, all of my feelings were numb. I didn't feel sad. I didn't have anxiety, but I wasn't happy either. I was just numb. And medications will do that. They will just numb you. And then you like fake it till you make it, because you're supposed to be happy because you're on these pills that are supposed to get rid of your anxiety and depression. But all they do is just cover up the feelings. They cover up the feelings that you're feeling. They numb those nerves, those emotional nerves is what I like to call them, because you don't feel those emotions anymore.
Yep.
So I was like, once the doctor wanted to up my medication, I was like, nope, I need to find something else. And so I Googled emotional holistic healing, and I've Googled it since, and like the modality I found does not come up anymore. So I don't know. It had to have been like universal intervention. And it's a modality called the emotion code.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if you've heard of it.
I have not.
Yeah, so it's a modality created by Dr. Bradley Nelson. He's a retired chiropractor, and he would use muscle testing in his practice to test for supplements. And a lot of doctors and chiropractors and naturopaths will use muscle testing, which is using the body's muscle tension to ask questions about what it is that your body desires. Yeah. So, you could do that with food. There's lots of different ways to muscle test. So if you guys want to learn more about that, absolutely YouTube it, because there's tons of different ways and it's so helpful. But he created this modality from dreams and other things that he was getting. Like, we all get these intuition hits. And he was sensing that some of his patients were not getting better because they had these trapped emotions within their body. And if you have read The Body Keeps the Score, it kind of talks about how emotional trauma can eat away at your physical body because you're just holding on to it.
Yep.
So I was like, okay. I was a little skeptical at first. The most energy healing I had done at that point was maybe some meditation and acupuncture. And I was like, what do I have to lose? Like, I've tried everything else. Like, what else do I have to lose? So I did a couple sessions and I was just like, this is weird, but it might work. Like, this is interesting that somebody else can tap into my subconscious and say, okay, you have a trapped emotion of neglect at age 4.
No.
And we're gonna release that. And I was like, I okay. And you just take a magnet and they're like swiping over their head over the governing meridian to release this trapped emotion. And by the end of the session, I was like, I can feel a difference. It wasn't the placebo effect, maybe, but placebo effect works.
Yes, it does.
Right? That's been proven that that does work. So I was like, okay, let me try it again. So I signed up with another practitioner, and because it was COVID, they started doing like webinars and the conferences online because nobody was, going in for in-person conferences anymore. Yeah. And so I signed up to join in the virtual conference to learn more about it so that I could understand what is going on? Like, how is this, and I learned that energy is just emotions in movement. Energy is just things just moving around in your body. And like, I remember learning in school, we're all energy. Right. So it's like, okay, so if I'm energy, my computer's energy, can my emotions be energy? Yeah. And it's like, well, I can't say no because I really don't know. So, because you sign up for the conference, like, okay, they sell you the certification at the end. You sign up for the certification, you save $100. And I was like, okay, I'll learn how to do this for myself because I'm the type of person that I'd love to learn how to do things for myself so that I have a better understanding. Yeah. And so with the certification, you have to practice on, I think it was like 30 people, or 10 people, do 3 sessions on each or something like that. So I was going through these sessions, learning how to do it, doing it on myself. And then I signed up for their second level. I was like, because you hear all of the chatter of like, oh, you can release trapped emotions. But did you know that the second certification, you can realign your chakras and release energetic, the toxins like metal toxins and, snake bite venom and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, at this point, I'm just like, I'm all in. I'm like, I'm YouTubing everything and reading everything I can read about the emotion code and energy work and all this. And I'm like, well, if just releasing trapped emotions can make me feel as good as I'm feeling now, well, what can the second level do? So I went ahead and signed up for that too. I was just like, just give it all to me. And so within 3 months of learning the emotion code and the body code, I had healed from my anxiety and depression about 80%.
Oh, wow.
80% by just doing the energy work.
Wow.
That's and big. It was huge because it was the most improvement I had seen in my mental health. And I was see, so this was 2020, so I was 44 at the time, when 43, something like that, when I got into it. And there were times after I did energy healing sessions where I was like, I haven't felt this good for as long as I can remember. Like even during the birth of my children, you those are extremely happy times for most people. And mine were filled with anxiety and worry because, well, the first one, I was 19. I was like, how am I going to be a mom at 19, 20 years old? And then the second time I was pregnant with twins, and it's like, okay, so you think one is preparing you, and then you get dealt a double dose, and you're like, it's a whole different ball game than what you're used to.
You're not even used to it at that point.
Right. So, I was just feeling really good, but there was still something missing. And I had joined a coaching program, and they were, you need to meditate 20 minutes a day. You need to journal every day. You need to work out every day. You need to do this every day. And I was just like, how am I going to fit all of this in? I was working full time. I didn't have little kids, but I was still dealing with some of those emotions, some of those things that were going on. And I kept telling myself, I don't have time for any of this. Like, I work an hour away. I work 8 hours a day. I'm gone 10, 12 hours a day from home. How am I going to fit all this other stuff in?
Yeah.
And so I did some energy work around it, because you can do energy work around anything. Like, you have blocks to doing self-care. You can do energy work around your blocks to self-care, and you would be surprised at how you can now do the conscious work. Because you don't have that space filled up with all that energy that you don't even need anymore, but you're holding on to it for a reason. So I did some energy work around blocks around meditation, why I didn't want to meditate. And there was stuff from past lives that came up and stuff from other timelines. I mean, it can get very, very woo-woo, very overwhelming with all of the different directions. It's I equate it to like the multiverse, like in Marvel.
Yeah.
That our lives are in a multiverse. We're in a multiverse, and all of these multiverses kind of bleed into each other at one point or another. And so we're getting energies from all over the place, and we're getting energies from other people. Being passed on from our parents or someone we have an argument with at the grocery store. It's something that simple that people don't realize can cause issues years down the line.
Oh yeah.
So I started figuring out how to put self-care into my routine. The meditation, the journaling, setting boundaries. I was relearning to feel worry or feel guilt or feel shame, and saying, okay, it's okay that I'm feeling this. It's okay that I'm feeling shame around looking at myself in the mirror, like shame about my body. It's okay that I'm feeling that, but why am I feeling it?
Yep.
Why am I feeling shame against this beautiful thing standing in front of the mirror? And you know, when I did energy work around it, it was that there was a belief that I would never be sexy enough, or I would never be skinny enough. And go ahead.
I was just going to say, and that enough, is that for you or for someone else? You know,
right. Whose stuff did I take on that was saying I wasn't enough? And when you sit with it, you start to think, well, gosh, you know, 17 magazine, when I was looking at 17 magazine when I was 14, 15 years old, with these beautiful teenage girls on the cover in bikinis, and, you know, they're like a size 1, and you're sitting on your bed and you're like a size 12, and you're like, I'm never going to get there. And then 20 years later, you're still, I'm never going to get there.
Yep. And
you know,
that's just one of those things that kind of what you're talking about. We have all these outside things influencing us, and we don't even know it.
Right.
And we may know it in the moment, but at the same time, I think, kind of like you said, our emotions get trapped, and they kind of protect themselves. Like, oh no, I like feeling this way.
Yeah, it's absolutely protection, because you don't want to get hurt. And so you hold on to them. You build up this wall. It's actually, they have a term for it. It's called a heart wall. And you actually build up this heart wall around your heart of these bricks. You know, you can imagine, like, you know, just a brick wall. And, you know, you might meet somebody who's able to take down some of that wall. Maybe they can chip away some of that mortar that's in between those bricks. And then they want to send you love and appreciation. And so you can visualize like this butterfly of love and appreciation going towards you and trying to get through that wall. And it's not able to get through it might try to get through a crack. But by the time it gets through the wall, you're not feeling it the same way that they're intending you to feel it.
Oh.
And then if they have a heart wall, right, once they start sending that love out, it may not actually leave them the way they're initially intending it to leave them.
It's kind of like a distortion filter going out or in.
Right.
Weird.
Yeah. So when so when people are having relationship problems, and they're like, you are just not listening to me. Like you're not listening to me. It's not that they're not listening to them. It's just that everything's being distorted because of their own crap.
That makes a lot more sense.
So when you can look at other people and go, okay, so they're getting mad because I didn't know what they were thinking. But it's not necessarily that they didn't know. Well, you didn't know what they were thinking, or they didn't know what you were thinking. It's that, you know, they have these expectations, and in their mind, they've told you those expectations.
Yeah.
Through either their actions or their thoughts, but they've never actually said it with their words. And if they had, you might. Okay, so an example would be, your husband comes home and you know, you tell him, hey, thank you so much for working so hard. Thank you for doing everything you can so that we can have food on the table and a roof over our heads. And he's standing there listening, and he's taking it all in. But what he's hearing is, hey, thank you so much for coming home. I love you. Can you take the trash out?
Yeah.
You know, he's missing words that you're saying. And all he's hearing is, you know, oh God, I'm so glad you're home. Thank you so much for being home, but can you take the trash out? It's just, it can distort it. Yeah, absolutely. And we all have. And that was one of the first things that I realized before I found energy healing was I was perceiving that people were saying things that they weren't saying, or that they were thinking things that they weren't. I was making up my own stories to validate how I was feeling inside.
Ooh, yeah, that's it.
and it had nothing to do with them.
Mm-hmm.
So another great book is The Four Agreements.
Yes.
Not to take anything personally and to not make assumptions.
Mm-hmm. But that's hard.
It is hard. As a human being, it is hard.
Mm-hmm.
I actually got "Be impeccable with your word" tattooed on my arm because it was more of a reminder for myself to be more impeccable with my word with myself. And I'm human. I still find myself sometimes falling into those traps of not only listening to gossip, but like asking questions so that I can know more.
Isn't that just like human nature though?
Well, it is. It is. But when you learn that your words are energy, and even if those people that you're talking about don't hear you, you're still sending them that energy.
Yeah, I'd have to agree.
You know, the biggest example I have for that is when Jennifer Lopez did the Super Bowl halftime show, and people were up in arms about her outfit, the way she was grabbing herself, all that stuff. And it's like, do you guys understand, like, all these words that you're putting out there, whether it's on social media and she's reading it, or it's with your emotions and you're just passing it from person to person to person, like, all of that energy is being sent to her. And she's feeling all of that energy. And she might get a headache and not know why she has a headache.
Or just those negative emotions.
Yeah.
Because Linkin Park's Liedman, I forget his name at the
Chester.
moment. Yes, thank you. I was.
I just.
I remember whenever he did his act, I just had so many people be like, "Well, he has millions of dollars and this, that, and that, and how can someone like that just do that to themselves?" And I was like, "Well, don't know what's going on. Like, if you listen to his, there it goes.
Oh, you say you froze.
It's kind of done that a little bit with me on you, but I've been able to like piece everything together, and so I'm just kind of sitting here, just like, all right, I'm pretty sure I know exactly. And then you keep talking, and I'm like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah, this was a little bit longer.
But so like with Chester Bennington, people were like, how could he do that to himself?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, if you listen to his lyrics, he's hurt. Like, and not only that, but just because you have money and status and fame doesn't mean that you're immune to all these energies from everyone else.
Right. Right.
And so you never know, like, who's talking about you. And like, some people are like, well, any publicity is good publicity and stuff. No. And it's like, no, it's not.
No, I used to love reading like the Inquirer and you know those kinds of magazines and you know watch ET online, you know, all those, you know, even the talk shows like Jerry Springer, you know, all of those. It's like you just don't understand how hurtful that some of these things that people say can feel. And even if it's not being said about us, you read it online and you're just like, that is so hurtful. Like, I know that's someone's opinion, but why do you have to be so mean? Why can't we be kind to each other? You know, it's just, I know it's part of human nature, but we've got to change human nature.
And so that kind of leads me to a question, like human nature, we have the good and bad, right? I'm a firm believer that people are innately good.
I agree.
Because I remember whenever I was going through rehab, someone said that people are innately bad. And I was like, well, why is that? And they used the analogy that, I think you froze. You froze.
I did. Am I?
Okay. We're back.
Freeze frame.
But they had used the analogy that whenever a little kid eats a cookie from the cookie jar and they have crumbs on their face, and you ask them, "Did you eat the cookie?" and they say no, and like, where did they learn to lie? Like, did you teach them
Parents.
how to lie? Yeah, and
They did.
yeah, and I was like, well, you kind of did, because you also taught them fear.
Right.
Fear of discipline or authority, and so that fear made them sit there and do something quote unquote bad, but that's a survival instinct.
Right.
And so if you raise your kids, and I can't really speak on this personally because I don't have children, but in my opinion, if you were to teach them to respect uh, the parent or whatever, the guardian, and that you treat them with love and kindness, even if they do mess up,
Yep.
they're going to be more truthful.
Yep.
Because they don't fear for their life.
They are. And I, with my kids, my husband and I had a different opinion on how to raise our kids. He eventually kind of saw it from my perspective. You still there?
Mm-hmm.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. You said, "Oh no," like I froze again. So one of the things that I did with my kids was they were allowed to screw up once.
Ooh. Okay.
They get caught drinking.
Mm-hmm.
You get caught once, I let you pass. Like, you're not punished. You're going to experiment. It's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But understand that you give them the whole talk. You're underage. You shouldn't be doing it. It's not safe. All that stuff.
Yeah.
You do it again, then there's going to be a punishment.
Yeah.
And if they did it again, they got punished.
Yeah.
But that built a relationship between us, that they were okay coming to me with just about anything. And sometimes it was like, "Oh, I don't know if you should come to your mom about that." It was like, I don't know if I want to know that. But it allowed that door to be open. And I wish I had done that from when they, just started talking and walking around. But I didn't have that knowledge before they were going into their teenage years.
Yeah.
But even now, my kids know they can come and talk to me about anything. And even if it's about me, if they have something that they need to talk to me about because I've offended them or something, they know that they can come and talk to me, and that I will listen, and that I won't get defensive. And that I may try to explain why I did what I did or said what I said, but I will ultimately apologize.
Yeah.
Because it hurt them.
And their feelings are valid.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've apologized to all of my kids if I ever made them feel like their feelings were not valid. Because I know I did that when they were younger. Because I had my parents in my head saying, "Oh, you're not really sick."
Oh, I hate that.
Yeah. There were so many times that my daughter was sick from school because she had a headache or a stomach ache, and I look back and go, "My God, she was having anxiety." And I acted like I didn't care.
Eesh. Yeah. On the flip side for that, I had something physical. So growing up, my parents thought I was a really picky eater. And in high school, I had a whole bunch of things going on with my chest, and we weren't sure what it was. And so I went through some food allergy testing, and whenever those results came back, my mom and my dad looked at each other, and they were like, "Oh my gosh." And I was like, "What?" And they're like, "He's allergic to all the foods he doesn't like." And they were like, "We are so sorry."
Yeah. My husband likes to tell a story that his mom told him that he cried for the first 9 months of his life. And they would give him orange juice every day. And it turns out that he was allergic to orange juice.
Allergic to orange juice.
So Yeah, he was
Yeah.
allergic to orange juice, and yeah, she's like, I'm so sorry that we tried to
Oh,
poison
you
you.
cut out. You cut out right at the orange juice.
So
He's allergic to orange juice?
yes, yes. So my husband was allergic to orange
Okay.
juice, and my mother-in-law was giving it to him every day for 9 months,
Dude.
and couldn't understand
Yeah.
why he was crying all the time.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing too, is people are always like, well, if you're allergic, you're going to die of
Right.
anaphylaxis. And I'm like, that's not how allergies necessarily work. Because mine will mess, like, I used to love watermelon, but I would always end up hurting afterwards. And
Mhm.
I mean, debilitating pain. And so one day my brain just went, I eat this, I'm going to hurt. And so
Right.
I'm not going to eat it. And then that's whenever I was just like, all right, like anything that makes me feel funny, I'm not going to eat. And that's whenever I turned into the picky eater. And years down the road, turns out I'm allergic to everything. So like all nuts, all melons, shellfish, and the list goes on. And the allergies are varying in strength and all that. So
Yep.
like, and it's weird because some days I can have a little bit of this, or I can't have it at all.
Yep.
And so it's kind of like I'm just going to roll the dice on some days. Like, is my stomach going to kill me or not? And like, I don't know. We'll find out.
So that's something that energy healing can help with.
Really?
Energy healing can help with everything. It's just a matter of how deep does the energy go.
Ooh.
And how many sessions will it take to fix it, to get rid of it? You know, when I was learning energy healing to get rid of my anxiety and depression, it took me 3 or 4 months to be about 80%. And then I had to start doing the conscious work of the self-care. Goes the same for everything else, right? So I've harmonized my body with wheat and dairy. So I no longer have digestive issues with having wheat and dairy like I used to.
Wow.
But it took me, sorry. it took me about 2 years of bi-weekly, because I didn't work on it all the time, of bi-weekly sessions to heal my digestive system enough so that I was harmonized. And I had other practitioners working on it, because you can't always just work on yourself. So it took about 2 years to get to the point where my body is harmonized enough that I don't have digestive issues from those things anymore.
And that's crazy.
So
I was just going to say an analogy I've always thought of doing energy work with yourself is kind of like filling a glass of water with more dirty water. Like, you can't really do it that way.
What, energy work on yourself? No,
Well,
actually you can, but sometimes there are things that your ego won't let you reveal to work on. And so somebody else sometimes has, and this is where it comes into like when we came into our human existence. I don't know what your belief is on like coming into a human existence, where our souls come from. But you kind of sign a plan or a contract as to what you're going to do in your life. And sometimes you have to have these other people come in because you signed a contract saying, you know what, you're going to help me, because by you helping me, you help them grow. So you can heal yourself from anything. But when you have a team of people to help you, whether it's one time or one session a week for 16 weeks or whatever, you can do it. Like, you can heal yourself. I healed myself pretty much, except for maybe 3 or 4 sessions. I healed myself from my anxiety and depression within 6 months.
That is way too cool, though.
Now, I had to find the modality. I had to learn the modality. I had to go and see a couple people to show me what the modality could do. I needed a coach to show me how to meditate. I needed someone to tell me, hey, you need to journal. So I had that team
Mm-hmm.
of people that came in to help me heal in other ways so that I could do some of the work on myself. So
Oh.
that dirty water that might be being dumped into that cup is other stuff that maybe some people need to heal.
Oh, that's a really good way to look at it. I love that.
So work on yourself,
Huh.
but when you get to the point where you're like, I don't know what else there is.
Whenever you hit a wall,
Whenever you
go
hit a
find help.
wall, that's when you say, hey, I think I need some help with this. Can you help
Mm.
unlock what else it is?
Uh-huh.
Um,
And see, that's just really cool. And one of the things I've heard in one of my recovery rooms is self can't reveal self to self. And I think that that would kind of go along that same line. Like you hit that wall,
right,
someone else
right.
has to go behind it and be like, "Oh, hey, that's what is there," and then it's kind of like getting an intel report.
Right, right. Well, sometimes there's also what we call fail safes. There's
Okay.
there's things that are hidden, or there's things that are that you signed a contract to say, hey, I'm gonna take this on.
Oh.
But you also in the small print say, but if it's ever found, we can let it go.
Huh.
So that's
What?
yeah. You should seriously sign. I'll give you a complimentary session when outside of the podcast so that you can experience and because it can. There have been practitioners who have come up with other modalities that work so
Mm-hmm.
well with muscle testing so that you can tap
Hmm.
into your subconscious and find what it is that is at the root of whatever's going on. And just having that ability to look at ourselves in an easy and quick way. Healing
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to take a long time. Healing doesn't mean that you're sitting there in a room in a meditative state for 3 hours a day contemplating what what life is or
Uh-huh.
sitting with or having to relive the trauma that you went through by
Mm-hmm.
constantly thinking about it or writing it down or talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
There are ways to heal without having to know exactly what it is that you're letting go of. That's old school healing for me. New school healing is, hey,
Okay.
I have a chart of emotions. What emotion
Uh-huh.
is most important to release right now? And I can muscle test through the
Ooh.
chart very quickly and go, oh, I need to release anxiety. Okay. Do I need to know what age that's from? I do.
Mm.
Okay. Okay. So what age was that from? Okay, great. Do I need to know anything else about it? No. I can just get rid of it, and I get rid
Huh.
of it.
That is
But
way too cool.
it is. But the key is
And
to
I know you
is
make it sound simple, but it's really not.
well, I mean,
Or is it more simple?
once you learn how to do it, it can be simple. But the harder part
Mm-hmm.
is doing the conscious work after. Is saying, okay, so
Ooh.
I trapped this emotion of anxiety, and you
Mm-hmm.
feel anxiety the next day. Are you going to push it away, or are you going to say, okay, what am I worried about? What
Ah.
story am I telling myself? Because if you don't learn to do the conscious work, if you don't learn to
Mm-hmm.
feel your feelings, to set your energetic boundaries, to speak up when you don't want to do something,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to continue in the same pattern. You're going to continue to trap emotions or trap new beliefs, take on other people's energies. If you don't do
Mm.
the conscious work to protect yourself going forward, you're going to stay in the same place. You're going to keep having to clear things.
Gotcha. So it's kind of like if the things you ignore end up controlling you
Right.
a little bit.
Right. So if you do the energy work to release all those energies, you should be doing
Mm.
the work so that you can control your thoughts and not the other way around.
Gotcha. So let's go back to that glass of water.
Mm-hmm.
You pour cleaner water into it and you got clean water, but whenever you just have water that sits there, it stagnates and it's
Right.
not good.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you need to turn the faucet on, or maybe
Yeah.
let it drip in the winter.
Yeah.
Like
you got to move. You got to,
Mhm.
energy has to move. So you have to move in some way, whether it's moving your knowledge, moving your body, moving your spiritual self. It's there has to be movement, or else you do get stagnation.
Yeah.
And that's when the
And
mosquitoes come in. You don't want mosquitoes.
exactly. No one likes malaria.
Right?
So, would you say that being mindful is one of the like mental exercises you do every day?
Yes.
And I know myself personally, being mindful can really suck sometimes.
It can.
Because I'm sitting there, and whenever I catch myself in an old cycle or an old thing, I sit there and I go, well, why is this? And then I try to move forward sometimes, and then every now and again I get lazy, and it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna let it hit.
Well, it's because you're attached to that. You're anchored to it.
Mm-hmm.
So release the attachment to it.
Gotcha.
So it's not necessarily something that is, it's there's an attachment to whatever it is that keeps coming up.
Okay.
So ask yourself, why are you attached? Why are you attached to this feeling? Why are you attached to this memory? What is it that this feeling gives you? And it could be, so one of the things that I struggled with was getting healthy. And it has been kind of a constant thing that I've been working on for the last 4 years. I was finally able to quit smoking. I'm working on eating healthy, exercising, but I had this fear of getting healthy. And I was like, why do I have this fear of getting healthy? And when I kept asking myself, I was like, and then sometimes I would push it away. I was just like, that's not why. That's not why. And it really came down to, well, if I get healthy, will those around me who are not getting healthy with me still want to be my friends?
Oh, I gotcha.
Because I had this this truth that I had taken on, that a coach had said that if you want to be a millionaire, you need to surround yourself with millionaires.
Yep.
If you want to be healthy, you need to surround yourself with people who are healthy.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, but if I do that, I'm going to lose all the people around me because they're not doing what I think healthy should be.
Ooh.
So my perspective of what healthy should be was the perspective of all of the fitness gurus, the, Biggest Loser trainers, those, right? That is what I saw as healthy. And when I really got down to the root of it, it was, I was afraid to just, to enjoy life. It really had nothing to do with being healthy. But I was afraid to enjoy life because I had been so sad and so hurt and so in victim mode for so long that if I had joy in my life, I don't know, I didn't even know how to have joy.
Yeah.
But that's where it started. It was, I'm afraid to be healthy, but at the core, it was, I was just afraid to be happy. I was afraid to be joyful. I was afraid to just love life because everyone around me was always complaining about how horrible their life was. So next time you're feeling that feeling, just ask yourself, just keep asking yourself, why am I anchored to this? What do I get out of still having this? Do I still get attention from people by having this? Do I get, do I get whatever love I get from it? right? If you're feeling
Mhm.
that way and you tell somebody and they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and they give you a hug, it's like, "Oh, well, that validated, that gave me what I was looking for."
Uh, so ask for tough love.
Not no 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 no. Don't ask for tough love. Just unanchor yourself from the feeling.
Yeah.
Just say, "Okay, I'm having this feeling. I
Mhm.
acknowledge that I'm having it.
Mhm.
It's really not serving me right now.
Yeah.
Thank it for coming in."
Mhm.
And then just
And
say, "You know what? I'm okay with letting you go." And you may have to do that several times.
mhm.
But
Uh.
that's why mindset work works. It does work.
Yeah.
Reframing your thoughts does work. But when you put
Mhm.
energy healing behind it,
Ooh,
it
powerful.
catapults it. It allows you to shift that mindset much quicker
Mhm.
because you now have the space to put in new good stuff.
Yeah. Because you can't fill something that's already full.
Right.
Reminds me a lot of the book Constructive Wallowing.
Oh, I haven't read that one.
It's really good. It actually changed my life for the better because it taught me how to feel my emotions.
Mm-hmm.
After a decade of thinking I knew what emotions were, or rather being numb.
Right.
And so it, like, I internalized that book. And they go through, Tina Gilbertson writes out the truth technique, tell yourself the situation, uh, realize what you're feeling, uh, uncover self-criticism, try to understand yourself, and then have the feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first time I did that, I was like, this is weird. It doesn't make sense. And then my therapist walked me through it, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh.
Yeah.
And it sounds almost exactly like what you were talking about. Like, because for me, I found a lot of my fears were actually fear of success.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I was always like, I'm afraid of failing. And then it's like, no, I'm afraid of actually being successful for once.
Right.
And but in the book she talks about you have to let go of the negative emotions. You have to like hold on to them and like tell them like, hey, I feel you, feel it all the way out, and then it'll go away,
Mm-hmm.
like once you acknowledge it and stuff. And at first I didn't really, it made sense, and then it didn't make sense, and then the more I've worked with it and the more it makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
And it just got easier and easier. um, but I guess I still need to ask more questions of why.
Possibly.
Uh, so maybe instead of truth, it needs to be like true wooth. Um, why?
Right. Why is there a story behind what you're feeling?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
what is the story?
Mm-hmm. And what does it serve?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to have to take all that to heart and uh, really just, man, I'm excited to see where it goes for me. And I know anyone and everyone that's listening to this is going to come away with something fantastic. And I wonder how many people are actually going to sit there on their drive or just listening at home and just going to be like, oh, hey, that's it. And just like how many epiphanies are going to
Right.
be
Right.
happening.
Right. And and I just want to say that when they're learning, when they're sitting with their negative emotions,
Mm-hmm.
make sure you sit with the positive ones too.
Yep.
Because oh my gosh, when you feel joy and you're like, okay, give me a minute. I want to sit with this for a minute. Oh my God. Like it's euphoric. It can really,
Mm-hmm.
joy and happiness and glee can really become euphoric if you allow yourself to just sit in it.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you're sitting in those good feelings too, because that's going to push more of those negative feelings out. And
Mm-hmm.
that is a form of energy healing that you're doing
Ah,
for yourself because you're moving the energy around.
that makes a lot of sense. I like that visual.
Yeah, you're moving the energy out. And you can, you're feeling anxiety. Think of, for me, when I start to feel anxiety, I go through the process of, because I'm still human, so I still feel it, but I don't sit in it anymore. But I feel it
Mm-hmm.
come up and I'm like, okay, why am I anxious? Okay. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
we need to change that, and I go through the process. And then I'm like, okay, you know what? Now I'm going to bring in my joy. And for me, it's Christmas morning. I'm 47 years old, but I am still the first one up every Christmas morning because I love Christmas. I love the feeling that Christmas brings me. And so I'll bring in that feeling of Christmas morning and I'll just sit in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can it's for me, it's euphoric. Like it's just, but learn to sit in those good feelings because you're going to want to sit in them all the time. Once you really start to feel what they feel like.
Yeah.
And it's just going to keep moving all of that negative energy out.
That's really good to know in practice.
Yeah.
Because I know for myself, sometimes that negative feeling is addictive.
It can be, yeah.
But one thing that you'd mentioned before was a feelings chart. I've always done a feelings wheel.
Yeah, you can use the same thing.
Same
yeah.
thing.
Kind of, yeah. If you look up emotion code chart online, it'll come up, and I think it's 5 rows and 2 columns of emotions, and so yeah.
And because for me, I knew happy, angry, hungry, horny. As a guy being raised in today's society, those were my 4 emotions. I didn't know that there was a plethora of emotions, and each one has its own unique feeling, and it changed my life being able to go, this is actually the feeling. It's not just happy, it's glee, it's joy, it's surprise. It's not just anger, it's resent, it's irritation, it's frustration. Like, oh man, that just
yeah. And these are things that you would hope that we would learn from our parents. But our parents don't know them.
Yep.
So, maybe it's something that needs to be taught in kindergarten, first grade, second grade. Is maybe there needs to be, every year there needs to be like there has to be a mental wellness class that I think kids should take every day, every year for their entire school year. Just like they have to do gym, music class, there should be a mental wellness. And, half an hour a day, they do meditation, journaling. What emotion are you feeling right now?
That would be really cool. That would change the world, I think.
I think it would too. Start a movement.
And I mean, that's what we're doing here. We're starting a movement.
Absolutely.
It's never too late to start.
Nope. No. Yeah. If you're like, I'm going to start tomorrow, why wait till tomorrow? Start today.
Because tomorrow never comes.
No. You're always starting today.
But man, it has been absolutely amazing talking to you. And just so you know, I like to have guests on multiple times because the journey for mental health and just getting better is never ending.
Yeah.
And the story goes on. And so you never know what one might learn from point A to point B. And so I love hearing the story. I love hearing the change of perspective or the gathering of new knowledge. So I would love to have you back on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'd love to. Thank you so much, Keegan. I really appreciate that. You're a wonderful host.
Well, thank you for that. I still don't know what I'm doing. I'm just rolling with the flow.
Does anybody really know what they're doing?
I don't think so.
No. Or you just follow your joy, and you really seem to enjoy this. So it'll work the way it's supposed to work.
Yes, ma'am. Yep. I do like that. Well, that is all the time that we have for this episode. So real quick, why don't you give a shout out to yourself, any websites or anything you got?
Yeah, my website is designyourexistence.com. Okay. You can find me on not all socials, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, at Design Your Existence. And of course, you can Google me and find all of that information as well.
All right. I'll be sure to pass on that message, and we will have all those links in the episode description and stuff for you.
Great.
So,
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. You have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.